Welcome, everybody. My name's Edward Ebro. I'm the chairperson or coordinator for the TCBC Bike U. I want to thank everyone for attending and welcome all our Bike Minnesota folks. I think there were some people that wanted to attend, so welcome to all of you. I wanted to do a call out too on past programs. This is our third sort of class for this year. First one, you can get these on recordings and they are being downloaded, is on the environment with Paul Thompson, Mindy Ayala. It's a really nice program. And then of course, our TCBC bike history with Doug Nelson. It was a very informative program. I learned quite a bit about the club, so it's always nice to know. I also want to do a call out. This is not just an individual effort. It's we have a council of regents that includes Tim Rand, Mike Beatles, Shelby Miller, and John Benda. And so I thank them. We've been meeting monthly. Our next program is going to be on April 28th. There'll be a post after this program because of the way our forum works. I didn't want to get it mixed up. And that's going to be on e-bikes. And so I'll be looking forward to seeing some of that information. We also are going to take a break over the summer, then come back in the fall, because at night now people are going to want to be out riding. So after the April 28th program, then we'll start back up. One of the things we're working on is on the Greenway and getting an update on what's happening with the Greenway, and hopefully that bridge connection to St. Paul. So I'd like to now introduce John Benda. John's one of our board members and chairs the equity committee and has helped get this program together, and I'm gonna let John do those introductions. So John.
All right, thanks, Edward. I'm John Benda from TCBC, and I'd like to welcome the TCBC members here. Give us a wave, you TCBC members. Who's a TCBCer? Okay, and then I also want to welcome anyone that learned of this program through Bike MN, and thank Ted Dupner from Bike MN who helped promote this session. Who are the Bike MN folks? And maybe some of us might be both. And then Stamina Racing Collective, I want to welcome all of you. Give us a wave, everyone from Stamina. All right, so Erin Ayala will be leading a panel discussion with the others from Stamina. So I'm going to read her little bio that's on their website. The bios are pretty entertaining, so you might want to go to Stamina and read everyone's bio. So Erin has been riding bikes since 2012 and racing them since 2017. She is also a Little Bella's mountain bike mentor and enjoys having dance parties to the Jonas Brothers with 7-year-olds on the local single track. She could probably use some dance lessons from her teammates. Erin grew up in Wisconsin and loves traveling. She moved to Minneapolis 4 years ago after living in upstate New York, which is where she fell in love with endurance sports and hiking in the Adirondacks. She loves staying active with hiking, yoga, paddling, and lifting weights. She lives with her spouse, 2 dogs, and 1 very fluffy and moody cat. She is a proud member of the LGBTQ+ community. She works as a sports psychologist and researcher. Her favorite hobbies are being extra and biting off more than she can chew. And I did a little research on Erin. Let's see, she is a doctor of health and sports psychology. She's a PhD. She's a certified mental performance consultant through the Association of Applied Sports Psychology and is listed as a licensed mental health provider on the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic committees. Mental health registry. She currently leads the research development and assessment division of Premier Sports Psychology. And additionally, she's an endurance sport athlete and advocate, and co-founder of Stamina Racing Collective, for which she races regularly in events throughout the Midwest. So I hope that's all accurate, Erin.
All accurate. Yep. Thank you.
And I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John and TCBC for hosting us tonight. We're really looking forward to this conversation. I'm Erin Ayala, one of the founders or founding members of Stamina Racing Collective. And so what the goal is, we'll provide a little bit of background information on our team, how and why we started, and what we're all about. We race bikes, but that's not it. We do a lot in the community, and so we'll share a little bit more about that. And then we've prepared some questions for our panelists. I'm here with 3 teammates who have volunteered to hang out with us tonight on a Monday evening, Christina, Mel, and Madeline. So the 4 of us will basically, have a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion in cycling and what we can do as a group, as a whole, some of the lessons we've learned along the way, and then what we're hoping to do this season and then in years to come. Feel free to drop questions in the chat, as Edward noted, and we can keep an eye on it, and then I'll try to fold them in. And then obviously, Mel, Madeline, and Christina can also keep an eye on it and fold things in as they see is appropriate and relevant. So I guess to get started, we started Stamina. So as John noted, I've been racing bikes for a while. I came from triathlon, and then I moved from the upstate New York area to the Twin Cities in summer of 2016. I was still a triathlete at the time, but moving to a new state with new roads, no known routes can be pretty difficult and kind of intimidating, especially when coming to a larger metro area. I wasn't sure where to ride. And so it was easiest for me to ride and not have to worry about like finding another pool to go to drive to, and fewer logistics. I was also working in Duluth, so I was commuting back and forth I was a trailing spouse, and so playing the early career woman game. So I commuted to and from Duluth for the year, and biking was the easiest. I had my gravel bike. I was able to do the gravel roads in Duluth. And then when I came down here to the cities, I was still struggling. So I actually Googled Twin Cities cycling clubs. I found TCBC. Randall Huskamp brought me under his wing in Midtown and taught me how to handle a bike as a triathlete. And so the rest is history. So Randall has all of the credit for getting me into racing bikes. I would not be where I am without him. And that being said, I also found a lot of like really small and subtle experiences or things that would happen where I didn't really feel like I belonged. It didn't seem like as much of a community as I was hoping for. And it just felt different than like marathons or triathlons. And then after digging a little bit deeper, I realized, well, like the gender is a huge issue here, as I was often one of the only women on the rides. And that just led to experiences where I felt out of place. Often unintentionally on the part of others, but really worked hard to try to bring more women and diverse folks into the sport. So I bounced around on teams for a couple of years, and then last summer we founded Stamina Racing Collective. I think my spouse was waiting for me to do this for a while because I had not yet found my fit. And so July of 2020 is when things really took off. Madeline and Christina are 2 of the founding members with me. We built this from the ground. So as a researcher in sports psychology, I knew I had done research on women and gender diverse cyclists and what are their experiences, what increases and what decreases the likelihood of them trying competitive cycling and racing. We know that about 16% of licensed racers are those in the women's field. So there aren't a lot of people racing in the women's field, and that means there are smaller sizes, fewer options, often like just fewer like prize pools. And then that reinforces these disparities that we're seeing. And we knew 3 of the main factors that were kind of pushing folks out unintentionally was this lack of community, kind of showing up to races and looking around and not really knowing what to do or who to talk to, and not really feeling like you were a part of that scene, not seeing people like you. A lack of mentorship. you really need more Randalls in the world, and more ideally women who can serve in that role, and people of color and people in the LGBTQ community, to really bring people in and say, hey, what questions do you have about riding, tire pressure, gear, layers, right? And then the third is accessibility. We know that cycling is really expensive, and getting into the sport is really, really difficult for someone who isn't totally convinced that this is something that they want to really commit to. So if people want to just try it out and get a sense of what it's like, dropping $1,500 on a decent road bike may not make the most sense for them. And that doesn't include all of the other gear or training equipment. So that is what we founded Stamina off of. And so we are a group of cyclists working to diversify the peloton. We're all we've tried to kind of find ways to summarize who we are as a team, and we just aren't able to, because we have so many different identities coming together, and that's what makes us so cool. We really work hard on the accessibility piece, on the community development, and then on the mentorship. So those are the 3 platforms to Stamina. We started on donations. We had most of our riders are on donated bikes. Many of them have since purchased them. We've become a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which also opens up the door for grants, so we can more easily give back to the community while supporting our own work and our own riders and members. And so we've had some pretty classic bikes come through the Stamina fleet. Christina started on, I don't even know how old it was. It was a 3x Motobacane. And the first time she got on it, she's like, oh, this is fast. And it's all been we've just really progressed from there. So that's a little bit of our backstory. We work really hard to provide education and to do it in a really enthusiastic and funny and supportive way, so that people don't feel afraid to ask questions, so people don't feel shamed. Knowing that these are really important topics, and we also have to talk about them in order to make progress in this field. So that's it for kind of Stamina. We'll provide more info and details, and you'll learn more about us as we talk about the experiences of our riders. We'll also provide info on how you can support us and get involved this season for anyone who's interested. Oh yeah, the Instagram feed, thank you. We work so hard on our Instagram. So there are a lot of videos, lots of dancing, just lots of really awkward situations. We embrace them. So if you're not yet on Instagram, it's worth joining to get some entertainment throughout the day. So that being said, we're gonna just start by each person introducing themselves, names, pronouns, and then any other cultural identities, whatever that means to you, that are important to you as a cyclist and that have informed your experience as a cyclist. So maybe we can start. Madeline, do you want to start?
Hi, I'm Madeline Garcia. I use she, her pronouns. As Erin said, I was one of the founding members of Stamina. And I grew up in Texas, as I mentioned, hook 'em horns, even though they're not going to the Final Four. I am Mexican American. I was also the first in my family to go to college. And so that has really informed my journey and my life and my interactions with people. Was that all the questions? Sorry. Okay, thank you. I'll pass it to Mel.
Hi, I've got the questions up on a side screen because I know I won't remember everything. So I'm Melissa Tanguy, and I am a Colombian adoptee and part of the LGBTQ community. And I grew up in Georgia, and some of my first memories of biking were we used to go camping a lot, and we went somewhere in South Carolina, and I had my banana seat, with the little streamers off the side of the handlebars, riding through the ocean, like the waves, the shallow waves of the ocean. My parents just let us be as carefree as we wanted to be. But of course, I didn't realize like within days and weeks that it was going to rust the bike because, you know, the salt water is not good for bikes. And of course, I didn't know about cleaning bikes back then. So anyway, that was a hard lesson to learn, but it was a wonderful memory. And I think I said I use she, her pronouns. And I would also say something, it's not necessarily a cultural identity, but something that I am realizing needs to be kind of shared more often, is that I'm hard of hearing. And that's something that's been coming up now that more folks are out on the trails and on the, you know, the streets and whatnot, is trying to figure out how to, you know, and this has been a conversation in some Facebook groups about like, how do we let people know? Because people aren't always good about saying, hey, I'm coming up on your left. And, or if they do, I may not hear it. So we've been trying to figure out how we can make ourselves more visible that way. So people remember or consider that not everybody can hear them, or see them for that matter, when they're biking. So that's something I just wanted to mention. Christina?
Hi, I am Christina Knudsen. My pronouns are she, her. And like, I think maybe John said at the very beginning before the recording started, I'm from Northeast Iowa, and I am half Vietnamese. My mom is a Vietnamese refugee. And since Mel brought up a fun biking early childhood memory, I will too. We would always like, my dad would run and then we would bike and then we'd go to the ice cream place called the Whippy Dip, and then we'd get an ice cream and then we'd bike home. So that kind of is now like still the theme of me. I'm like, how about we bike and then we eat a burger and then we bike home? So that's kind of my MO, is bike, food, bike.
Thank you all. So one of the questions, I'm going to have Madeline take this one because she's done it before and always does it really well, is why do we include pronouns in our introductions? What's the meaning behind that? That's something that has kind of changed and started to happen more often in recent years. So what's the meaning there?
We share that because you can't assume someone's pronouns or gender identity based on their appearance or their name. You know, it is an opportunity to tell people that I am welcoming, I am glad to have you in this space, and I'm going to honor your identity the way that you've shown up. And so, you know, it definitely is something that it's a journey for folks to learn that, right? To get the hang of that. And so just things as simple as including your own is a great signal to other people that maybe haven't always felt like they could share their pronouns in a space, or that if they shared their pronouns, they would be the only person that put it out there, or potentially that those pronouns wouldn't be honored. And so just encourage you to keep going on that practice. I know usually the first question is why, and the second question is what happens if I mess up? Everybody on this call has messed up. And so you correct yourself and you apologize. Just as though I mispronounced your name, I would say, I'm sorry, Benda, thank you. I've got it. Thank you for correcting me. And then you move on and you get it right the next time. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
And that's something that we've seen a lot. It's, you know, cycling is a lot of sports, most sports are very binary, right? Like there's women's fields and there's men's fields. And so one thing that we're working really hard on at Stamina is to try to make it a more kind of accessible and inclusive space for people who may not feel like they belong in one box or another, or for trans folks who may feel more uncertain about kind of entering a new space or a new community, right? And so one of the things that we often do is we work hard to, Madeline just sent this email, I think last week, with the race announcers to make sure that they know our name pronunciations and our pronouns. And they have been really wonderful and open to that feedback. And my name is often mispronounced and I've just gotten used to it. So I don't say anything because I don't like, I have other battles to worry about and other things to worry about. And the announcer actually, after realizing that my name was pronounced differently than he had been saying it, came up to me after a cross race last season and was like, Erin, have I been mispronouncing your name for the last 2 years? I was like, yes, sorry. He's like, you could have told me, right? But so we're trying to be more proactive and just putting those things out there from the beginning. And that has been really helpful. And, same thing with the pronouns, is saying like, okay, this rider uses they, them for their pronouns. And so instead of saying like, look at her crossing the finish line, you can say, there they go, or look at them crossing the finish line, right? And so we'll try to provide examples on kind of what to say and what that sounds like. We've also worked hard on just like trying to say more gender neutral language, especially in, spaces where we're bringing more community members who may not have met us before, again, just to show that we want to be as inclusive as possible and we don't want to make assumptions. So for example, we often avoid language like girls or hey ladies or hey guys, which is often very kind of informal and casually said in day-to-day conversations. And for people who may not feel like they are a girl or a lady or a guy, is just like one more little paper cut that they take with them later that day. And so we work hard to say, just like, thanks all, hey folks, hey friends, hey pals. So we'll come up with Madeline loves y'all, being from Texas. So we'll work hard to use that type of language just to show again that everyone is welcome and everyone's included. Yeah, y'all means all. So cool. So let's move on to our next question. Maybe I'm going to kind of combine these two because I know it can be, everyone has a different story and a different narrative here. Is how were you introduced to cycling, and how do you tried getting into cycling before Stamina? Like what were your experiences in cycling kind of leading up to Stamina? I remember one of my experiences was I asked, as a triathlete, I asked my coach at the time if I could try to jump into it was like a Cat 4 novice 4-5 race. I had never done a bike race. And he actually discouraged me from doing it, saying that I may not fit in because I was a triathlete and it may not be a positive experience for me, right? So that was kind of my first time trying to get into it. And then later I had someone else kind of fold me, into the scene and I was able to participate. So I guess I'm curious what others have experienced. Have you ever considered cycling and racing? What was it like before Stamina? Since joining Stamina? You can take it wherever you'd like. Christina, go for it.
Okay. So I had not considered racing just because, I don't know, it looks really intense. And actually, I guess it is kind of intense. And yeah, it just wasn't something like I saw really growing up or anything. So I was like, okay, I don't know. Riding your bike is just like a fun thing you do, or maybe you do it for exercise. And also, I guess I did a lot of like running all through, high school and college and after college. So then I was always like, okay, it's like my cross training. So I hadn't really gotten into it. And I know that Erin she was like, always like, oh, do you want to like come and watch a crit and I'll tell you how it works? And I was like, maybe. So, but she's very persuasive. So eventually I got there. And I do really enjoy the especially gravel races and longer races. I'm still an endurance person. So crits are still a little bit too much of intense breathing for me, but they can be fun too.
I can go next. So I moved here about 4.5 years ago, and I impulse bought a bike before I found a place to live. Don't recommend, by the way. And was in Minneapolis. I had no clue what I was going to do with my life. And my friend was like, you like riding your bike, you should go work at a bike shop for the summer and figure it out. And I'm pretty sure that I knew the least about bikes of anyone that the hub ever hired. I am not exaggerating here. And they took me anyway. And with that lack of knowledge, I also had so much support. It is a really generous and kind shop that has just a long history of supporting femme, trans women, and non-binary folks, not just in sales, but also in as mechanics. And so I learned a lot really quickly. In that experience, there were absolutely days when male customers would come in and quiz me on my bike knowledge. And so I felt this pressure to not only learn really fast, but to know more than all of my other coworkers. And so I accomplished that pretty well. I became a buyer within like 8 months at the shop and was there for a couple of years. And at some point in there, I was like, maybe I want to join a team. Like I love riding and like, I think I'm pretty strong. I think it might be fun. It might be a great way to meet bike friends, not in the context of work. And I started looking at teams and I think I applied to a couple teams and it just didn't feel like the right fit. Like they didn't seem like my people and I didn't see any people of color on these teams at all. And so I just wasn't quite sure if there would ever be a team that was right for me. And then found Stamina. And so here we are. It feels like we are building the bike as we ride it many days, but we're making it happen.
So I would say I've actually been a motorcycle rider for most of my life. And my last couple bikes were Ducatis, which are, if you know anything about motorcycles, it's an Italian race bike. And I had no business having those because I am, I'm naturally inclined to be a daredevil and will, do things like ride really fast and see how fast I can go and race people and whatever. So I was like, I've got to get out of this hobby. Not only is it super expensive, but I'm going to kill myself or somebody on it. So I decided to kind of shift gears and get into biking, which was healthier for me all around. And bought my first bike as an adult in 2008. Got myself a Surly Crosscheck from a local bike shop and was like, had no idea if it fit, had no idea what sort of upgrades I would have. I was just talking to a friend saying, when we were kids, you got the bike your parents bought you or that your friends gave you or whatever. And like, you didn't know anything about, points of contact or getting different pedals, or, you couldn't reach the seat or, the pedals, you just had to wait till you grow, kind of things. There's, no knowledge. And so I got a bike and then started realizing like, I really want to start riding with people, when, queer people, brown people, and had been a member of the Minnesota, I think it was a mountain biking page, and just kind of put a post out saying, hey, does anybody know of any groups of queer people that is riding around the cities? And somebody mentioned Stamina. And I was like, never heard of them. And pretty soon after that, Christina actually chimed in and like reached out and started telling me about the team. And that was a year ago, December. And I was so excited. And then I was just ecstatic that there was some, a team that was not only trying to get more representation, but trying to educate people and give them knowledge to know what they're doing when they're on a bike, or at least know what they're doing when they're buying a bike or maintaining a bike. So that was absolutely amazing. And I applied for the team, and this year I got on the team. I actually applied last year, but I got sick and decided it wasn't the best time. So this year I've been on the team and it has been amazing. I've learned so much, and suddenly now I have more bikes than I would have ever imagined, because, have to have the bikes for the disciplines. And but I'm learning about what each of them can do and how to maintain them and what, all that stuff. So it's been an amazing community to be a part of. So.
Thank you all for sharing that. So our next question that we have, we'll be doing both sides of the coin. So the one we're going to be starting with is, what are the behaviors or situations that have decreased the likelihood of you returning to a group ride or a race or a community event in the cycling community? So if you can think about different situations or experiences where you're like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go back. What might are there any that kind of come to mind for you? I know there's one that I can think about that it was my first cyclocross race. And I just want to name a lot of these things are unintentional and people aren't doing them, intentionally to make people feel excluded. It's just all of these, our brains work in mysterious ways. And a lot of these things are happening without us realizing it. So it was my very first cyclocross race. And I was watching, I went ridiculously early because I was really nervous. And so I was watching the race before, it was probably 2 races before mine. And they had 2 fields going at the same time, which they often do for the cross races. There was a women's field, and then there was I think it was maybe a single speed or a men's masters field or something. And the woman up front was new college student to the area from New York. So I knew who she was, and she was new to our community. And I had, again, it was my first race. So I was also trying out this cross thing after having done road for a little bit. And the race announcer completely missed her finish and didn't announce the first place woman for the race. Because there was another male cyclist who was crushing it on a mountain bike and doing an awesome job and blowing everyone out of the water. And he was so focused and fixated and admiring how talented and strong this rider was that he completely missed the woman's finish. And so those are the situations, I'll find myself in those types of situations where I just feel like I have to work harder or be louder or faster or stronger in order to kind of get the same amount of admiration or appreciation or credibility that some of the male cyclists I've seen get. And that is something that has been really hard for me. Any others have some experiences that kind of come to mind as just examples of maybe that wasn't the best place or experience for me?
Do you want to go, Christina?
No, you go ahead.
I'll go first. I was at a road race this past year. It was last year was my first season of racing, and so a lot of things still felt very new. And this race was short on volunteers. And so I showed up really early in the morning in the rain. I volunteered. I ate a mediocre peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I am very nervous trying to get ready for this race. My fueling was not right, my timing was not right, but here I was. And my teammate was going to pin my number on my jersey. And so I'm bending over in this race position, and she's looking around, figuring out which side the number goes on. And there was a male rider who was on the team putting on this race, came over and was like, yep, it goes on this side. And then he proceeds to grab and caress the side of my body where the number goes. And then where the second number goes, he's rubbing my back, which is completely inappropriate, right? So there are multiple things here. And it was just for so many reasons, not the way I wanted to feel at a race, or especially not before a race. And so I just had this crummy feeling about it. And I kind of sat on it for a handful of days, and finally reached out. One of a friend of Stamina is on this team. She's a woman, she's a mom. And I just reached out and I said, hey, this thing happened and I still feel cruddy about it. And like, if I didn't know you and know that you would handle it, I don't know that I would ever go back. And I just think about all the people that have had a similar experience and maybe didn't have somebody to call or somebody to like reach out to. And so, yeah, that was my road race last year.
Thanks for sharing, Madeline. I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Madeline, that sucks. Well, not like it's a competition. Hers is worse, so I guess. I don't know. I just started fat biking last year, and then I went fat biking with one of my friends, and like, I don't know, I didn't really know how to like take care of my stuff that well, so I guess my chain got like kind of rusty. And then I was in the parking lot talking to my friend, and then like some guys that she knew like came over to like say hi to her, and then they started teasing me about my chain, which I was like, oh, I hadn't really noticed it. And like, really, it's not that big of a deal, but then I felt just like kind of embarrassed and like, I don't know. I don't really like getting teased by people I don't know, especially when it's like, all right, I'm already like slow and like not good at, you know, riding my bike. So there was that. And then another like little thing at my first cyclocross race, then someone was cheering, and I know that they were just trying to be like supportive and like cheering because like nobody else was around there. So then every time I would go by, then they would cheer for me like, good girl. And it just felt like really gross to me. Like, yeah. So those were my things.
I think for me, I think the two biggest things is one is I just have never really seen any representation, and that's been really hard. Not only other women, but especially not people of color. And that is definitely a barrier to not feeling supported or not feeling like I belong. So that's definitely one thing that's kind of decreased my love of trying new things and that sort of thing. But I think another one is just feeling like, you know, there's kind of because we all know biking is expensive and buying all the gear is expensive. And, you know, there's kind of a little bit of snobbery that you see on different trails with, you know, and clicks, I guess you could say, when riding. And I feel like, you know, sometimes there's this judgment that's passed, you know, if you're not riding the best thing, or you're not wearing the right clothing, or you're kind of, you know, working with what you got. So I think that's definitely something. And I'm someone who, because I kind of got into mountain biking, that's like my first love. So when I was doing some of the community rides before I joined Stamina, I was like on my mountain bike because that's all I had. And I have still somewhat of an aversion to wearing biking clothes, the tight lycra or whatever it is, polyester stuff. So I'm wearing my comfortable, you know, mountain biking clothes, and definitely got some looks from people like, where's your kit? You know, why are you riding a big knobby mountain bike? And I'm like, that's what I got. I'm working harder than you and I'm getting a great workout, but yeah, I'm suffering a little too. So those are some of the things.
Yeah, it's interesting because the research that I did, and this was a number of years ago now. I should do another one and update it on just some of the experiences that folks have had that kind of turn them away. It's kind of these like really like, it's like a lack of eye contact, or like jokes that don't really feel like jokes, or quote unquote helping someone up a hill, right? Kind of like saying, you know, without asking for permission first, and all of these things that just kind of add up, and then you can't focus on your ride anymore. because you're so focused on like, wait, what did he mean when he said that? Or what was happening here? So I know I've had my fair share of those, and it's gotten better over the years as I feel like I've gotten more confident in these spaces. And frankly, as I've gotten faster and better, because I feel like then it's easier for me to like show people that I belong, which is really sad that belonging should not be based off of how fast or how skilled you are. And I think that's something that I've experienced over the past few years is like, if I'm on mountain bike trails, I get less like feedback about tire pressure or questions when I'm faster than when I might look like someone who's new and still trying to figure it out, right? So I think those are some of the little things that folks will often do, again, unintentionally. And it's just like, slow down and just create more space and just ask before, offering advice or touching someone. Great life advice, right? So that said, if we turn the tables and think about, the flip side, what are some of the experiences that have led you to be like, wow, like that was an awesome ride. That was a really cool group. Definitely want to come back, definitely want to return. One that comes to mind for me is I've been working with Tour of America's Dairyland for a couple of years now, and I approached the director there a few years ago and asked him to add a third women's field because the guys had 6 or 8 options and the women had 2. And so the women were racing with the juniors, and then it was like category 3, 4, 5 and juniors. And then it was the pro 1 too. And it's a national event, right? So you get all of these people together from all of these different levels of experience, and it's crashes galore. The new Cat 5 riders are getting dropped after paying $50 for their first race. The Cat 3s are frustrated about the juniors. The juniors feel like they're in the way. Like it was just not a good situation. So I put together a report, being the researcher, and emailed the director and was like, hey, can we talk? And we did, and it opened up this really cool relationship. And he has since added a third women's field for the often forgotten middle of women's cycling. It's a 2-3 race. So now people can choose, is it 1-2, 2-3, and then he did kind of a split omnium for 3-4 and 4-5. So technically he added 2 fields. One of them is like, there's 3 fields per day. That was a really cool experience. He bent over backwards and made a pretty big risk in basically removing one of the other races in order to see if we build it, will they come? And we did, which is really cool. So that's my example. Any others that come to mind?
We got a race director from the lacrosse Omnium that reached out this winter and said, hey, would love to chat with you about members of your team coming to race. He mentioned that they've had equal payouts in their men's and women's fields for the last 5 years, and that he, wanted to get more femme, trans, and women riders there. And I feel like I'm very protective of our team. I am like the mama bear of the team. And so I called this guy and I just start grilling him. Poor man did not know what he was getting into. But I was like, hey, here's the deal. We got a team. Many folks are new. We also have many friends of our team that are race curious that might be trying races this summer. And I said, we've been pretty disappointed with USA Cycling the last couple of years. At the Cyclocross Nationals, there were trans athletes that were harassed and intimidated by a hate group on the sidelines. USA Cycling has yet to say anything about this event publicly, to make an apology or make any effort to protect their athletes. And I also said that, racing locally, we think that there's a lot of benefit. It grows this community. Even if they do have to be affiliated with USAC, we think that there is a lot of benefit. But our race announcers and race promoters, they pronounce all of our names right. They use the appropriate pronouns for our riders. And I was like, can I count on you to do this? And he said, absolutely, no question. because I was ready to be like, well, you won't see any of us at this race if that is not a commitment that you're willing to make. And so it was just a great conversation. I wasn't sure what his intentions were. You know, I think I have feel a little protective about this idea of like recruiting for my own field and like doing the job of a race promoter. But after chatting with him, I think that they're creating something really cool. And I do think that it will be a welcoming environment for a lot of people.
I think some behaviors and situations that have increased my desire to return or stick with biking is stamina. I think stamina has definitely, I'm an older rider. I think there's a 22-year difference between me and the youngest rider on our team. And so I'm definitely one of the oldest, not one of but the oldest rider on the team. But I feel good about that because I feel like the team is not committed to just certain pockets of visibility, but like so many pockets, which I feel really happy about. And I definitely, represent multiple things in those pockets. So stamina has definitely been such a positive thing for me to see and to be a part of and to grow in, but also to represent. I'm so proud to be a part of it. And like everybody I know knows about us and what we're about. And it's really been fun to see my friends who are similar in similar situations that didn't grow up, being athletes or didn't grow up being around racing or didn't have the money to, to buy bikes and that sort of thing, kind of saying, hey, maybe I will try this. I see that there's our community there. There's, there's supportive people and there's places I can go where people like me are working there and want to help. So I think that's definitely been a wonderful thing. Plus, now I feel like I have a little bit of knowledge to be able to say, hey, I'm not just somebody with a bike, I'm somebody with some knowledge who knows how to ride that bike and knows what kind of bike I'm riding, so that's empowering.
Cool. I have a couple things to add. One thing that like keeps me in, like Mel said, is stamina, but then more broadly, like just allies and people that I know like have my back. So like my friend in the parking lot when I got teased, she like told him to cut it out. And I don't know, something like that, just like to make me feel like, okay, someone's got my back. And then another thing that is very encouraging is like kind of like what Mads already said is like when race promoters reach out. So last year or like a year and a half ago when stamina was super new, then the race director for the last best ride reached out and we had a Zoom meeting with her and she was encouraging us to come. And it wasn't just like, okay, come so that we can like, meet our like diversity needs or something like that. Like she really felt, it was clear she like really felt like passionate about this sort of thing and like supporting people who needed support. And so it felt like, okay, yeah, she really cares. And it wasn't just words. It wasn't just like, okay, here's like a comp race registration. And then, I don't know, you deal with the travel and you deal with the housing. Like she got us host housing. She gave us a travel stipend. So like stuff like that just like made it so much more doable. Cause otherwise it's like, well, I mean, I have like definitely cheaper hobbies that I also enjoy. So why not do one of those? But when people are like so inviting and supportive, then that helps a lot.
Okay, I have two more questions. So the next question is, in general, what advice do you have? This might touch on just kind of our most recent question. What advice do you have for people who are hoping to make cycling more inclusive? So if people want to make improvements, maybe not sure where to start, what advice do you have for them?
I can
Like you can, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Christina.
Christina,
Okay.
you go.
Okay. Like, I think sometimes people want to make things harder than they need to be. And they're like, okay, I need to like start from scratch. And it's like, instead of like, you know, starting from scratch and like trying to like reconstruct the wheel, like figure out what has already been established and like see what other people are saying. So if it's like, okay, one way to make, you know, things more inclusive is like, you know, being very like on top of using the right pronouns, or, you know, just like, you know, making sure what you're saying is welcome and not touching people and all other sorts of stuff. So just like, you can start by just like listening, get the like good basics down, like a good foundation. I'm not going to ramble too much. How about somebody else can talk now?
A couple of days ago, the Radical Adventure Riders put out a group ride guide, which is a fantastic resource. If you're not familiar with Radical Adventure Riders, definitely check them out. But I think it's a few bucks. You donate and then you download this great PDF that they put a lot of time and energy into. But it's like specifically focuses on how to create more welcoming and inclusive group rides. And so it's things like, you know, saying in your advertising how long the route is, including a link to the route, whether it is a no drop ride or not. If you host a no drop ride, you stick to it. You have someone sweeping that ride. You choose a route that is safe for the people in your group, right? Last season, I wouldn't have taken this crew on my 30-mile route that cuts through downtown St. Paul. Like that would not have been comfortable for them, right? So like you are responsible for picking a route that is safe for the people who are going. And I think that is just includes like a lot of really specific examples when it comes to group rides, so that people feel safe, which is also like a thing that helps them feel welcome and then gets them to come back.
I think both of what Christina and Mads have said are great things. I think the other thing that I touched upon at the beginning was making sure that you're considering the maybe invisible needs of others in terms of don't assume everybody can hear 100%. Don't assume that everybody can see, or maybe that that they're extroverts, or what, you know, you can go down the list. I mean, there's all sorts of folks that are out there. So just, you know, when trying to create a community or just even a group, just, you know, ask people like, hey, can folks hear me? Hey, do you feel comfortable with this? You know, like I just caught myself, I shouldn't say guys, you know, things, you know, that sort of stuff is just, and being really okay and patient with yourself also when you screw up on little things. You know, I think one thing that every time it's inevitable when I tell somebody I don't hear that well, they'll say, can you hear me now? Or did you hear that? Or, you know, something that I'm like, oh, haha, as if it's not the 6 millionth time I've heard that joke, you know, whatever. But also just kind of being like, you know, it's okay. I'm gonna screw up and forget that you can't hear that well on your left side, and I'm going to talk to you on your left side, you know, that things like that. So just kind of being considerate and things that you may not see, that are the things that maybe aren't visible to you, but just asking questions. Same thing with the pronouns, just asking questions to get information.
I think the one thing I'll add is if this is really hard, I still struggle with this. It's being open to feedback and criticism, even if it's not delivered in the most graceful manner. And reminding yourself that when you receive feedback, it's not like a personal criticism about you as a person. It's about like the issue at hand, whatever that might be. And someone was led to feel upset or hurt or excluded in some way. And so my spouse, they have this running joke at work about like feedback being a gift. So they'll joke like, thank you for the gift. whether or not they want to actually hear it. And so I try really hard to separate the context, like, you know, whether it's anger or emotion or frustration, or I disappointed someone, or I made an assumption that was hurtful, and someone comes to me with that information, like, that's a gift, even if it wasn't delivered in a way that I would like it to be delivered in, so that I'm not as upset to receive it, right? And so that's some of the continued work that I do, and the number one piece of advice that I have for people in kind of launching in and doing this work, because we all, you know, Madeline said it earlier, we all make mistakes. We all screw up, do embarrassing things. I think about things that I did 10, 15 years ago where I'm like, ooh, that was not a good look, Erin. And we learn, right? And so it's just continuing to like embrace that part of the journey, as uncomfortable and as awkward as it can be, because the alternative is to just not do anything or say anything, because then we don't make anyone upset. But then we're sending this message that the status quo is okay. And the status quo right now in cycling is like 90% white, 85% cisgender men. No offense to the white cisgender men in this room, you all belong here. And we need more, right? Like, we just need more people, more diversity, more abilities, more genders, more everything to really learn and grow and keep this sport moving forward. So that's the advice that I have, is like, just do it. Don't be too hard on yourself, and be open to feedback when you receive it, because we all will. So, yeah. Okay, final. Oh yeah, Christina, go for it.
Yeah, and then one more thing, like, don't rely too much on feedback, like, be proactive in going out, like, learning stuff. So there's like already like so much material out on the good old interwebs to like find, you know, how do I talk to a person of color? How do I talk to a trans person? Like, you know, all that sort of stuff. Like, what kind of stuff is, you know, maybe not a great thing to say to somebody, and why? So like, leverage all that stuff that's already out there. So just like if you were going to like try to learn how to do anything to your bike, or if you're like learning anything for your job, like, you take initiative and you go Google all the stuff, watch all the YouTube videos, read all the articles, like, do things like that. Same sort of thing. Like, nobody owes you this information. Like, nobody is going to like hold your hand and teach you. Like, you've got to like take that initiative and like make yourself a better person.
Thank you for adding that. Okay, so the last thing that we have is just, how can community members in general, TCBC and Bike MN and otherwise, support Stamina and the work that we do in the community? So maybe I'll start by talking a little bit about, because we haven't touched on that yet, the community programming that we do. Do any of you want to speak to that? Because some of you are leading the efforts or have led them last year. We have 2 community programs that are really cool, and we're going to do them again. We're about to announce them again for this next season. So does anyone want to take on Starting Line? Mads, go for
I
it.
was just gonna let Christina do it, but I can talk about Starting Line. So Starting Line is our program to bring in race curious FTW riders, folks that have considered racing, or maybe they tried racing once but didn't get into it, whatever it is. We want them to give it a shot with the love and support and resources of our team. So Starting Line members will get a Zoom coaching session, as well as an in-person clinic from a local coach that we work with. That is paid for by our team. And then Coach Corey has also created a 6-week training plan. I told her to think of Couch to 5K, but for a crit race. And so she created that plan for us, and that is given to these riders. And then when they participate in their first crit race, we cover the cost of their registration. And so they get to experience going to their first race, hanging out at our tent, having snacks, having people cheer for them, pre-riding the course with friends. And then this year we've got some folks that are going to be competing in the Women's Open instead of the 4-5 race. And so team members will get to ride next to them and coach them in that race. So we have a few folks that participated in that last year that are now on the team, and we are excited to introduce more people to bike racing.
And also, don't we provide bikes for some folks if needed?
Yeah, for folks who, if they don't have a bike or they don't have a bike that is suitable for racing, our team has got some bikes to loan to people. So have done that as well. It's made a big difference, right? We've had folks who are like, yeah, I only have this like really heavy hybrid cruiser and it doesn't have drop bars and the brakes are so-so. And we're like, no. Let's not do that. We've got a bike for you. And so, you know, it's meant to me and other teammates, right? Like delivering bikes all over town and like showing people how to shift and talking to them about clipping in and things like that. But the payoff and what it means for this community long-term, we know is worth it.
So we'll be doing that one again this year, which we're really excited about. We'll be announcing it probably within the next week. Yeah. So that's really exciting. We just finalized the details for that, and it'll be a cohort of no more than 12, probably 8 to 12, kind of depending on how many people apply. And our sponsors have been wonderful. And so they'll probably throw some extra swag, gear, sample, nutrition packs, things like that for the riders, which is fun. The starting line riders last year got like a cute cycling cap fanny pack, some nutrition, a flat kit, things just kind of, it was a nice welcome to kind of get started and get excited. So, and then the second program is called Ride Bright, and we're going to be doing that one again as well. Anyone want to speak to that one? That might be Madeline again, because she also
That's
did that
fine.
one
I can
for
do
us
that
last year.
There is a big Department of Transportation survey a few years ago that was about, you know, who commutes, why do they commute, and why do they stop? And over half of women who started commuting as their primary method of transportation quit in 6 months or less. The biggest reason that they cite is safety. When we think about what safety means for women, trans people, femmes, right, there are like lots of layers there. When you add the layer for people of color, that is an additional layer on there, right? And so we wanted to provide basic safety equipment to BIPOC riders as a means of increasing their ridership. When you feel safer, you ride more. That's what we know, right? And I think a lot of cyclists have experienced that. So we are going to be giving away lights, locks, and helmets to BIPOC riders. We're also going to be welcoming those folks into sorry, dogs are crying at the door. It's like they're neglected or something. They'll get to attend an intro to basic maintenance class at the hub. And so, you know, for a lot of folks, walking into a bike shop is a really intimidating experience. Getting people into, it's a 5-person class. So it's hands-on, it's a small group. There's space for them to ask questions and learn more about their bike and feel more comfortable next time they want to go back.
So we will be doing that one again this summer. Last year we did a big block party. As COVID numbers started to go down, we had just like a beautiful day outside. We had La Tortilla food truck came so that we were able to get food. We had a fix a flat class for people. And then we partnered with Major Taylor and did the largest group ride we've ever done. I don't know how many people we had. It was huge. It was really exciting. So we'll definitely be doing that again. So you can keep your eyes peeled for that. That'll probably be later in the summer, right?
Yeah, last year we gave out safety equipment to about 90 BIPOC riders. And I think we had about 30 take intro to basic classes. So I'm hoping for 100+ riders this year to get gear and take a class.
Yeah. So lots of great things that we're doing in the community. Our riders also do, just as part of being on the team, we're expected to contribute to social media, which like MN noted earlier. So that's what keeps us going, is we all have an obligation to contribute to the social media posts. We also volunteer a minimum of 20 hours in the community a year. So that could be Little Bellas, it could be mutual aid, it could be, I mean, we do a lot of different things. We've got some folks we've worked with, Free Bikes for Kids, community outreach. We have someone who does like GED tutoring in the community. So we work really hard to make sure that we're giving back. And then we also attend or race at least 10 events. They could be road events, they could be mountain bike, they could be gravel, fat bike. We kind of do it all. Road is what you see the most often. And frankly, the biggest reason for that is it's most accessible, and it was easiest for us to get bikes. So mountain bikes and gravel bikes are, you know, in general going to be more expensive due to the nature of brakes, suspension, fancier parts. And we were very much a run what you brung team and are relying on those donations. And so so that's something that I think is something that's just important to think about, is with the accessibility piece, is road is one of those more accessible kind of gateways. And so TCBC has a really cool opportunity in that, because you're able to kind of get the riders in before they turn into Mel and start purchasing their second and third and fourth bike. Christina has done the same this past year. So I guess I'll kind of end and then we can open up for final questions, and then I'll leave it to John and Edward for any final comments that they have. For people who are interested in kind of getting in touch with us, interacting with us, I'll drop our email in the, or maybe someone other than me, because I'm talking, drop our email address in the chat. It's staminaracing@gmail.com. And that's the easiest way to get a hold of us. You can also go through the website is www.staminaracingcollective.com. That's where you can read our funny and entertaining bios and see pictures of all of us and learn more about us. We're also about to update our calendar on that website. So we have community group rides, which we also didn't mention. They leave from the hub, and those will be starting, I think, in May. Every other week, and they're just open community rides, very much a slow roll, probably 10 to 12 miles per hour. Everyone's welcome. And then what else do we have? For people who want to support our team more directly, we've got merch. Right now we're doing a big promo for mugs. We've got custom mirror mugs that say diversify cycling on them, and we partnered with Stan's No Tubes for a tubeless setup like giveaway. So each mug purchased, it gets you an entry into the Stan's giveaway. It was $142 worth of Stan's goodness, which is kind of cool. And then we also are a 501c3. So we do take donations. It is tax deductible. One of the other ways that people have been able to provide us or support us is cyclists who have too many bikes and they feel like their bikes are starting to get neglected, and they don't want to give them away yet because they're not ready, but they want them to go to a good home. We have served as an outlet for that. And so we have some community members who weren't ready to let go, but they knew they'd feel better if they were still able to see the bike being ridden in the community. And so if you're in that situation, talk to us and we can help you through that. Because we do have a need for bikes. They're expensive, as you know, and our riders are doing their best to kind of, we'll source parts and frames, and Madeline will rummage through the used parts corner of the hub to try to, she's built up bikes at a ridiculously affordable price. But that's probably one of our other needs. So I think that's pretty much it. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to John and Edward. Thank you to, Mel, Madeline, and Christina, especially for sharing the evening with us and agreeing to do this with me.
I have a couple questions, but I'll just ask one first. But thanks for the information. One of my questions at the beginning was going to be, how can TCBC be more inclusive? And you gave some good points with the what's it called, the radical adventure riders. That you think that's the best resource then for us to look at?
I think their group ride guide would be really good to have.
Okay.
I think it's a really great place to start, and I think that you'll find that many of the things you're already doing, and then there are probably a few more that you can add to.
Okay, I have one. So we have made some efforts to diversify ourselves at TCBC. What do you say when you get a pushback? Like, you know, we have a statement about racism. We have activity, you know, we hosted a table at Open Streets and just, you know, trying to spread the word about TCBC to more diverse communities. Do you have a response when somebody says, why are you doing these things? Can't we just ride our bikes?
I've worked in nonprofits and worked in a shop where we've posted language like that. So I feel like I've answered this question a lot. Yeah, I want all of us to be able to ride our bikes. I want all of us to feel like we belong in this space and that we're welcome in this space. I want people to feel like they can show up and not be afraid of intimidation or physical violence when they're out here to have fun, right? And so putting these things out here is us saying that, like, this is what we value and this is the kind of space that we're looking to create together. And if that is not a value to you, then there's probably a different group out there for you. And so, you know, just in various other work capacities, have gotten pushback, have gotten hateful emails, have gotten screaming phone calls, and I call it the bless and release, right? If your values and their values aren't aligned, if they think that it's stupid, think it's some woke culture, then you know what? I think there might be another group out there that they can join. It's not this one. And if that is what your values are, if your values are creating an inclusive space for people, a space where folks feel like they can show up and be safe, by being like, oh, like it's like, it's cool, like, you know, you don't have to worry about it, right? Like that is counter, like welcoming the people that want to like be crappy about it is counter to that value. And if that's what you truly hold, then you would make a different choice in that situation. And so who we bring in, the behavior that we allow to continue, the language that we allow our members to use is a reflection of our values. And so I would encourage you to feel like you can share with people, yeah, this is important. Clearly this dog is not loved. This is important to us. And you know, that is what we're going to stick to, right? And if you have questions, like I would love to grab coffee with you and talk about what this has meant to me or the impact that it has on other riders in our community. Because not everyone has been given the option to show up the way I have.
Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Yeah. There's a question in the chat there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can touch on that one. Can we touch on our relationship with Machines for Freedom? So Machines for Freedom is a cycling apparel company that has designed, you could say, like high performance cycling apparel that's also like fashionable and feminine, designed for female bodies. And so they started, I don't know, maybe a decade ago at this point. They're owned by Specialized. And when we started our team, again, like I was the only one who had ever raced. So we were starting from the ground up. We needed jerseys, we needed shoes, we needed pedals, we needed bikes, we needed everything, water bottles, right? Like if you use it for cycling, we needed it, helmets. So I was doing whatever I could to get as many donations as possible. And so I reached out to Machines for Freedom because they're a brand that really aligns with the values that we had in mind. And I said, do you have any seconds, like any second bibs? Used bibs are awkward. like, you know, we got some used bib donations and we were working with them, but they don't fit as well as new ones, right? Like there's just so many different things that go into bibs that aren't going to give you saddle sores, especially for brand new riders. And so I emailed Machines for Freedom and said, like, do you have any seconds or things that are like, you know, that we could use? And they said, we don't, but let's have a conversation. We want to learn more about what you're all about. And so long story short, they offered to serve as our title sponsor for the year. And we are renewing that. And we are on our second year with them, which has been really cool. And they've worked really hard. They really appreciate what we are doing for cycling and showing, you know, all like whoever you are, if you are on a bike, you are a cyclist. And so we are working hard to like live true to that. Hence all of the social media. So we try really hard to just be authentic, and Machines for Freedom has embraced that. And as a result, they're one of our #1 supporters. And so they really helped us make the accessibility piece happen by getting us hooked up with bibs and jerseys. And I mean, it's hard to find bibs and jerseys where you like put them on and you're like, oh, I look good. And that's what happens with Machines for Freedom. And for us to give our riders that experience so early on in their cycling career, even Mel, who does not like cycling kits, speaks wonders, right? Because especially like anyone who has issues with their body, or they feel like they don't fit in, or things just feel or fit awkward. So kudos to Machines for supporting us with that. We've also worked closely with Scratch Labs. They've been great. They've provided nutrition seminars for us and being like, what should we be eating and drinking on the bike? We don't know. So they've come in. Wolf Tooth has been incredible. Saris, like we've just had some really amazing people in the industry who have said like, we want to support what you're doing. How can we help? And we've made it happen. So.
I'll just add that when I worked in a shop, I was the apparel buyer. And so I've worn samples. I've been given like sample sizes of most brands out there, most brands that are very common in the US. And I had never worn Machines for Freedom. It was this like lovely, pricier brand, and I couldn't get a shop discount. And they are the best. It's the best cycling apparel I've worn, and I've worn a lot of it. And so if there is a cyclist in your life that wears women's cycling apparel and you want to give them something very nice, that is what you want to give them.
Other questions?
So sort of going along with that, when you're go to bike shops, what are you looking for in that bike shop that are they being inclusive, or what types of things do you judge a shop by?
I have a lot of opinions about this. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. So it is not assuming someone's knowledge or lack of knowledge when they're in the shop. It's also like not touching them or their bike without their permission. So for example, like I think the way I'd recommend is at a shop, someone walks up to the service counter and says like, hey, I've got this issue with my bike. I'm not really sure what part it is. It's making this weird noise. It would be great if the mechanic said, okay, let's check that out together. Do you mind if I put your bike in the stand? Right? Like, don't just grab it out of their hands and like start talking over their head, or like let them share with you what is going on. The other like possibility here is that someone might walk into a shop and be like, hey, I'm out on a ride, I got a flat. Can I just grab a tool? I just need some tools. Right? And instead of being like, well, a service, they can change it for you, or like, you don't know what you're doing with those, or like, oh, honey, like you don't know how to change a flat, right? Those things have actually been said to me in a bike shop. And so like, once again, like not assuming knowledge, asking permission. And then like above and beyond is if you're working in a shop, if you're working in service, and you're like looking at that bike, going through that bike, and you come across the problem, like you've identified it, please like offer to show that person, offer to teach that person, say, yeah, your shifting is out of alignment. Do you want to come over here and look at what I'm doing, and demonstrate to them, right? So give them an opportunity to grow their knowledge.
I think the other big thing that I've noticed and experienced is like it's really hard to explain, but like these nonverbals, like these subtle signs that you did something wrong or were like mistreating your bike as a cyclist or rider. So, and we've had some people on our team who have had these experiences. I've had some of these experiences of just like, oh, like who did your bar tape? Or like, I just took my bike in, it should have been taken in earlier. There was a 6-mile descent on a race that we did in Montana in August, and my brake pads and rotor are wrecked. And finally I took them in to get them replaced, and the hub didn't even think twice. Like they saved them for me and put them in a box with the rest of the parts. And they're like, do you want to keep any of these? And I was like, is this what you took? Are you serious? This is what I'm so sorry. And so that is like being able to like, just not judging, and not unintentionally shaming, kind of like what Christina was noting earlier about like her chain, right? Is everyone's coming from a different place. And so just giving everyone the benefit of the doubt and not assuming that they should know or shouldn't know certain things about the bikes, because yeah, we're all learning. So that's something that I've seen has been really helpful. Oh, are they in the examples bin? Do they? The hub has a bin of examples, and so apparently my little disc pads, my brake pads are now in that examples bin. Yeah, that's what you shouldn't do. So, yeah.
So
then,
that's not shaming though, right?
Right. No, like they didn't even say like, what did you do? Why didn't you get these replaced earlier? Like they didn't say anything until I brought it up, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they were this bad. The only other thing that I would note is just like remembering people. When people remember me and they know my name, it means so much. That like, it's a little thing, but it makes a huge difference. So.
Part of my question was a little self-serving. I work part-time.
Yeah.
And bike shop is my retirement job, and it's nice. I think it's just I think what you're saying is really for anyone, you know, coming in. It's
yeah,
is because I've felt that shaming too from, you know, a bike shop that I won't mention, you know, that I brought something in and I felt like, you know, I'm not going to come back here, you know.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm treated.
Yeah.
So what do you guys, I shouldn't say guys, what do you folks on, you know, today was Florida just passed a law, you know, and then, you know, what do we do about things like that are happening in our society at you know, greater level?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've got a lot of family that lives down in South Florida, and it is so frustrating, especially being the only LGBTQ person in the family that's out anyway. It's really frustrating. Personally, I mean, I think they are very much on my side and very supportive and realize the absurdity of this sort of stuff. You know, it does feel disempowering for sure, even from a distance. But I think it's just kind of having conversations around like talking about, you know, these kinds of things that are happening that are just so blatant and just absolutely ridiculous. I think it just begs for more conversation, really.
Yeah, we've worked hard to like not even despite, we're really like silly and fun and authentic and grateful for our work in the community and for each other and for cycling as a sport. And we are willing to lean into hard conversations and push people, including like USA Cycling and other people who have shown like a lack of effort or engagement or motivation to help the people in the communities who really need it, especially right now. So just one example is, you know, hosting the like World Cup cyclocross race in Arkansas shortly after all of the anti-trans legislation was passed. And they can easily say, well, it doesn't directly affect our riders because they don't fall under the, you know, NCAA or collegiate or interscholastic umbrella, right? And we also know that, you know, the greater kind of umbrella right there is just like we can't expect trans people in our community to go to a place where they're frankly not wanted. And so one of the things that we do, you know, with Stamina, and I think one of the things that all of us can do is, one of the things I always remind myself is allyship has consequences. And sometimes we have to take risks and make sacrifices that have consequences. And it might mean getting some of those questions that, you know, you alluded to earlier, like, why do we even do this? Why can't we just ride bikes for fun? Like, that's a consequence of putting up those tables and making space for these conversations, right? And so I think one of the things that we try hard to do is use our platform at Stamina to kind of like take that for others so that they don't have to necessarily speak up and say, hey, I'm feeling really attacked and hurt and isolated and depressed and maybe even suicidal right now because of everything that's happening. Like, that is not their job. And so we try hard to use our voice together to then put information out there. And so we'll use our social media for that as a way to just increase awareness and to provide kind of templates for emails and letters and language that people can use if they want to send emails and if they want to contact people. But then we also work hard behind the scenes to send those emails and try to have those conversations as well. Because it goes back to that, like, if you don't, like, the silence is acceptance. So if we keep our heads down and we choose not to say anything, we're sending this message that we're okay with the status quo, and then the people on the sidelines are pushed further onto the sidelines and neglected and discriminated against. And so it means sticking our necks out and having, like, you know, like, as the young folks say, like, catching some shade from that, and you know, being criticized or judged. And that gets back to the values that Madeline was talking about too, is like, this is who we are, this is what we do. And we don't always feel good about it, and it's uncomfortable, and not everyone likes us. And we also care really deeply about what we do. So.
Well, thank you so much for giving us a lot to think about and ways that we can grow ourselves. Our time is, we didn't really set a time, but and it should be kind of up. So with that, unless somebody else wants the last word. Thanks again.
Just a few things. Thank you, John, and thanks for arranging for this program. And Erin, your group, it's very informative. One thing for Melissa, you talked about, people can't hear things. I'm a big proponent of hand signals. And I know TCBC, I think our ride leader, we have some, but I don't think we have any official ones, but those are always good ways of communicating, when you can't hear things, especially in large groups. I actually practice when I just ride alone. Just that, thanks everybody for attending. Again, our next program will be at about a month from now, at the end of April, on e-bikes. And please pass on the link to the recording once it's up. I'll probably have it up tomorrow with an update to the Bike U webpage, and you can find information there. I've taken some notes, and I'll put some information in for our newsletters too. So thank you again.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody.
Absolutely. Nice
Thank
meeting you. all.
you.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Okay, hope to see you out on the road.